there's going to be days where we don't have it. There's going to be days that I don't have it. Like, I don't even want to get out of bed. As a GC, as a business owner, I know that my people, my trades, my employees, they look up to me and they're watching me.
Well, very excited for the podcast today. We have Matthew Gallego. Welcome, Matt.
Thanks for having me, Brad.
Yeah, so Matt is the owner, founder, principal, labor at Cruise Development.
Principal labor.
Yeah, anyone watching along, he just changed his camera so we can see that Cruise Development logo. It looks sharp.
There we go.
And Matt, I know you specialize remodeling. You do new ground up construction, specs, more importantly, roofing. So like really busy with roofing, really busy with remodeling. So appreciate you joining today.
Yeah, of course.
And the best part is you're doing my roof at my house. So
it's the best, man. Yeah, I was just on the phone and I had my gutter guy out there this morning. We were going through some details and he's like, man, we're getting close. I'm like, dude, I'm going to set that pool house off, all the copper gutter and all the accents everywhere. It's going to look really good. So
what I love about Matt is we have this really intricate design and roof structure. Just to paint the audience. I mean, some people have been following us on social media. And of course, you know, I'm sure once this episode's released, a little bit after, we're going to have that roof complete. So we'll have plenty of drone footage for people to see. But we had this unique idea, Ashley and I, going through the design to have the pool house out of copper shingles, you know, with a copper roof. And then there's a lot of copper detail and slate on the main roof, which it's not a roof that I've ever done before. And so I reached out to Matt and he's like, I got this. And along the way, we've thrown you about 100 curveballs and you've hit them all. So, you know, kudos to you, man.
Yeah, dude, it's been fun. Like there have been every little detail. I was talking to one of the guys there at the boot camp and he was asking me about the roof. And I'm like, dude, every single detail that you can think of, it's in there. Like the house, the roof, just the design and how everything's put together. I mean, it's definitely going to set off everything because that pool house alone, I mean, that's just not going to be anything else you're going to see. So we're really excited for that.
And I want to come back to the social media, but you know, for that, you know, we were just spent some time in boot camp. You get a lot tanner than the rest of us. So, you know, no model Matt, he came back ready to go.
Dude, and my back was peeling. Like it was definitely peeling. I got torched there that first day. So I'm paying the price, but yeah, I didn't fare too bad on the old island out there.
Yeah, you did great. How do you, I know something that's really important to you is networking. You know, you're put yourself out there. You're very active on social media. I know you've had plenty of experience in construction like many, but in my opinion, I've seen your growth incredibly fast. You have, you know, a lot of people that trust you greatly, peers of ours that I know you're doing a spec with one of our peers who was on the podcast, Scott with Resurrection, and he thinks so highly of you. So how have you built these incredible relationships so fast?
I've kind of really tried to focus on the relationship instead of, you know, as a young business owner, as somebody who, you know, I've got a lot of mouths to feed. I've got 6 kids and, you know, there's a lot of motivation that keeps me going. But I would say that the only way that I've been able to build this fast is because of the relationships that I've built with guys like you, guys like Nick McCauley, a few of our other friends at the Builder Summits that have really kind of taught me how to just be myself instead of trying to do everything perfect because we're all going to make mistakes. We're going to have our stumbles and fumbles. And so the more I've kind of leaned into just giving it my all, really focusing on the actual end goal, which is to build my network. You know, that's really ultimately going to be, if I were to put a monetary anything to myself, it would be my network is my net worth. So I don't chase that extra dollar and I don't chase those, you know, maybe those leads that aren't going to really bring back a long-lasting result. I try and find, you know, the people that are not only going to bring me to the people and the places that need help, but also teach me along the way. So
I think what's incredible, Matt, you're very inquisitive. Every time around, you ask a lot of questions. You know, you listen, you take notes, you don't forget any conversations we have. I think that's pretty unique. And I've seen you. I mean, you've attended the summit multiple times, right? You go to a lot of the Curious Builder events we have here in town. And so I think you have the best laugh. That's for dang sure. So, you know, it's pretty contagious, you know, easy to hang with, but I will commend you that, you know, it's easy to have an ego in this field, right? I think someone like you, you've had a lot of experience. Your dad was an incredible builder. You've been in the trades, like you performed in the trades, but there's this humble approach. And I think that's pretty unique, you know, from most business owners.
Yeah, I've just tried to, maintain that. I don't like to necessarily toot my own horn because I've gotten to where I have because of the people that have come in front of me and shown me the way. My dad, he had me on job sites, I swear, when I was like 5 years old, picking up nails for pennies, like, hey, you want to come out here, you want to work, then work and prove it. And so I've had this work ethic that was instilled to me at such a young age from him, a relentless work ethic to where I know that some of us probably don't go to sleep at 8, 9 o'clock. I'm up kind of late and I'm up super early too. And so I can operate on 3 or 4 hours of sleep somehow, some way, still laugh my way through the day, still, get through everything that I've got to get through, but also recognizing that, like, man, this grind, it's going to be worth it. And it's going to be worth it as much as I put into it. And so I appreciate that. I appreciate that, Brad. I ask those questions because I really want to learn, and I look up to you. I look up to our other peers that and just help push me and kind of guide me along that way because you guys are crushing it. So
Well, what I think is unique about you, Matt, for me, I mean, you say crushing. I think there's a lot of challenges that come with any business, right? I see myself the challenges I work on, and keep in mind, yeah, I am a general contractor, so like there are a lot of issues, right? And you're overseeing
yeah,
a lot of different aspects. However, you're doing the same thing as a general contractor, but you're also working as a trade partner, like you do have a roofing company. How
yeah,
have you been able to balance and compartmentalize yourself and your companies to where, hey, you have your this hat on when you're focused on the roofing company? Because
mhm,
the GC company may have a project for 6 months, 10 months, 12 months, a year and a half. Roofing could be 3 days, could be 3 weeks, but
right,
I mean, this is turn and burn. So you're business development for a company that's always seeking work, crews, and then
hmm.
you're also looking for the general contracting side. How are you, divvying your time? How are you making a priority either one, with two completely different business models?
Honestly, I have no idea. um, I get calls every day, whether it's a roof or whether it's a possible, oncoming project for a builder. I The roofing side, I've kind of put it, I wouldn't say on the back burner, but it's just been kind of one of those steady, like, it brings in cash flow, but it also keeps my crew steady. And especially on the bigger projects, we can kind of spread it out a little bit. But lately, I've been kind of diving a little bit more towards that because it's good work that keeps my guys busy and happy. And we really want to, kind of separate the roofing side from cruise development. So I'll probably end up building that, into a totally separate company. But being well, I guess what brought me to that was being on the roof first. That was my trade that I really excelled at. I worked with Payne and Sons Roofing and Scott Roofing for multiple years, and I just saw the ins and outs of roofing, and thought to myself, well, these guys can do it. Now I can do it. Now I know a lot of people might say, well, roofing's not for everybody. It's not, but once you learn how to do it right, you just follow that same concept and you just perform that in the field. And so I've taken all the great things that I learned on the roof from those mentors of mine at Scott Roofing and at Payne Roofing. I ironically enough, Jason Payne, who started State 48 Roofing.
Yeah.
I rode shotgun with him for probably 4 or 5 months. And he taught me everything that I knew about roofing up to that point. And, I've learned a little bit more, but like the dude has that. I mean, you want to talk about somebody that's got roofing locked and loaded, in his brain. Jason, he knows, and I learned from him, and that kind of propelled me into Scott Roofing, where I was able to run shingle and tile and patios for them. And, it's just, I got a little bit of it all. So, when it came down to, hey, I can focus on either one thing or I can focus on everything that I want to, I like to push myself. So I said, well, let's do them both. Let's do the roofing side. That's kind of what got me off the ground. As I started my business, I had roofs and I had like 2 remodels, and the roofs were really kind of keeping the things going. And now I have a lot more remodels than I have roofs, but it's kind of like, neck and neck. And I kind of want to keep
Mhm.
it that way because as we continue to grow the company on both fronts, I want to be able to put the right guys in place to help keep those things coming up. So
What have you learned being in Arizona? Like, what makes a good roof install?
the underlayment. So a lot of builders, whether it be cost or whether it just be what the client wants, like they're choosing a certain material. And what I've found is that, at least in the 15 years I've been doing it, ever since learning what a self-adhesive material is, I won't
Mhm.
put anything else on our roof. Like
Right.
that's it. It's self-adhesive because something that melts into that plywood that really lasts, it's not going to come up, it's not going to curl back, it's not going to split or crack. I feel like if you're going to spend the money purchasing a roof, why not just give the client the ultimate, you know, it's not the cost saving, but it's just the best product. And so Instead of marking that product up, I sell it to them at our cost and I keep the labor the same. So other roofing companies, they'll mark that product up and they're gaining more profit, but it doesn't cost me any more money to put the same material on, right? It just costs more money in the material. So we charge the material up charge and that's it. We're able to still give them a good product. And I can sleep good at night knowing that our roofs are bulletproof. Now, I would say the second thing is flashing detail. So if guys are putting on underlayment, great, but they're not going through and making sure that their flashing is dialed in, laps are what they need to be. Typically on vertical and horizontal, you're looking at 2 and 4. We'll go 4 and 8. So we kind of just overlap a little bit over that just to make sure that the roof is dialed. It's a couple extra dollars for some metal, but it goes a long way.
What I love about that, your strategy from a pricing perspective, what you did share, Matt, is, I think it's pretty easy to justify for a trade partner, GC, to say, hey, if I'm doing a more expensive material, I'm going to mark that up or cover my cost because, cost of risk of replacement, risk of damaging, install, when there's waste factor of something, it happens. It's just part of the nature of what we do. But I think your strategy is interesting where you're like, hey, I'm going to give them a more expensive material at cost. And, not that you're going to make it up in the labor, but you still have your labor there. But that, in a way, that incentivizes the end user to do a nicer underlayment, which is going to protect you in the future for warranty and callbacks and protect them as well. So it's a way for you to sell a better product and service without, hitting so much in the pocketbook when people are always looking for ways to value engineer and save money.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's kind of that's always been my perspective. It's just give them the best option. Now, if it's the end all be all, I don't want to do that. What's your next best option? It's a synthetic underlayment, not a tar paper. If we do tar paper, it just in Arizona, right? It might work in other climates, great, but just in Arizona, it gets too daggum hot during the summer and things split. And it doesn't matter at that point if you're doing 4, 8, or 10-inch overlaps. Even if you're 2-plying that roof, that first layer is going to split and crack because of the heat. So, Westlake came out with a great material. Well, it was Boral originally, and Westlake bought them out, but tile seal. That's the only thing we put on the roofs, tile seal.
It's amazing. And I know, having worked with you, the flashing details, the lapping, anyone knows, our biggest pain point as a builder, as a roofer, is water. And the problem with water is a lot of times you have no idea what the leak is because it could be leaking, but, water finds its path of least resistance. It moves.
Oh, yeah.
And so where the end result is, where that drip is, it could be journey miles away, not miles away, but, it could be a distance
almost
away.
Yeah. And some of your houses, it might be a mile, it's running around this house this way and down. But no, seriously, like, for example, we had a little bit of leaking, like back when your house was in the rough stage, right? And we were flashing around chimneys and we had water coming through and we weren't sure where it was at. For us to be able to go up there and pinpoint a leak, be able to see, oh, this was done or that was done, like we got to go and find it, right? And whenever you'll notice, like, if there's ever anything that comes up, we're right on the spot because I don't like if there's ever any extra, damage or things done. But mistakes happen, and we just have to be there to fix them if they come up.
So, when I threw this challenge at you, and I don't know if you've done copper rain gutters because I said, hey, man, I'm going to have you do that. But more importantly, the copper, we have this like bell-shaped curved roof. How did you find a supplier for that? Because I can tell you one thing, before I enlisted your help, Matt, on my own, I researched and I reached out to builders around the country. I reached out to so many different people. Like, I couldn't find a good source for that product, having worked with it, and yet you figured it out. So, what was your strategy there? How, and really where I'm going with the question is, you're a lot of the value that you bring as a trade partner is the ability to problem solve, to find solutions, to find manufacturers, vendors, which is a lot to ask at times.
Yeah, I like a good challenge. And so when you approached me about it, it was something that, again, outside of what I do on a day-to-day out here in Arizona, not everybody's asking for copper, but I'd done it back in Boston. I'd done it back in the Midwest, over in Missouri, a few houses when I was doing some storm chasing back in my day. We were out selling, some insurance repair jobs, and a lot of that's copper out there, and standing seam and K-style gutters and bell curves and spires and everything. I mean, there's a lot of pieces that are involved. And so that was kind of me getting my feet wet for the first time. But I have a great installer out here who has a good contact with a local supplier that can get us the copper. And so the rest of that was just, all right, if I can get the material, then we can come out and we can, put together how all of these shingles are going to integrate together. And so I went over the detail with Tim, and, him and his team are going to be on top of it to help us and support us with that. And again, problem solving. If it's something difficult, I want it to be thrown my way because I like challenging things.
So walk me through the storm chasing, that area of your career.
Oh gosh, dude. All right. So this was after I had sold my pool business, which I
Well, it's a
started
whole lot
out.
of pool business. I'm learning so many new things today. I thought I knew
So
you
I
pretty well,
started
Matt.
I thought maybe you didn't know this part about me. So when I lived in Los Angeles, I started Los Angeles Pool Care as a 15-year-old. I needed money. It was in '08, right before the recession really hit. So I started with my pool and a neighbor's pool, turned them green every single week for probably 6 straight months. It was awesome. Somehow, my dad and my friends stayed with me if they were like, good, figure it out. And I built that business up to 100 some odd accounts by straight word of mouth. Like we had an ad running in Los Angeles magazine, never got anything. It was $50 a month. Anyways, I did that, paid for my mission, came home from my mission, kept working it for about a year and decided I don't want to be a pool boy the rest of my life. We'd gotten into doing some service, doing some remodeling in the pools, but I was like, nah, it's too boring. It was too monotonous. I needed something that challenged me. I wasn't speaking Spanish, so that was a big no-no for me. I couldn't lose my Spanish. It's like a part of me.
It
so
is. I've heard
so
you
I
speak
got
it.
into, I was doing sales and stuff, and a guy reached out to me. He's like, "Hey, I've got a roofing company across the country. We travel, we follow these storms, but the money's great." And I was like, "All right, let's give it a shot." So he sent us out on hailstorms with Boston and Missouri and Chicago, and we went and just hammered these homes, and a lot of that was door to door. A lot of it was B2B, like going to businesses and saying, "Hey, can we come in and check up on your roofs? I know it's a year after the storm. You probably had a million guys come through, but it hasn't been repaired." And so trying to again solve problems in non-conventional ways, because I wouldn't recommend anybody go and storm chase to try and figure out that that's what's for them or not. It was kind of brutal. However, it was a good learning curve for me to get through, and a little hurdle to try and prove to myself like I can do hard things. So did that for a bit, and yeah, this coming back and out of that and getting actually into the construction field. It was little things like that that just kind of kept propelling me towards what I ultimately knew I always wanted to do, which was build. Um, and once I got back actually full time into the trades, I'd done that storm chasing, and then came down and was meeting with Jason, working with them. So it all kind of just wove itself together, and then I got bored with roofing, so I decided, hey, let's do it all. I worked for a lot of good builders throughout the valley, and was able to get a lot of knowledge from them, and just decided it was time.
Yeah, it's interesting. As you look back, you mentioned how difficult it was, being on the road, storm chasing. I'm sure you work in a lot of different climates, a lot of different cities.
Yeah.
Do you feel that that helped your communication process, problem solving, working on different roof structures, as you mentioned, and, different people, different cultures? I mean, it's still
Yeah,
the US, but it is different, like in
it's
different
so
territories.
different. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Every state's different. The people, the way that they communicate, maybe some of the things that, whether it be trigger them or just kind of put them off. It's as storm chaser, you really like you're trying to solve a problem that not everybody's coming to you and asking for a solution. They all know that their house just got turned to Swiss cheese by some hail that's the size of a softball. What they don't want is somebody that's just insensitively coming in and saying, "Hey, can I sell you a new roof?" Right. And so I would take the approach of, I just went to Home Depot and bought 100 tarps on my dime. Can I noticed you guys have, some issues. Can I just come up and can I tarp your roof? And 9 out of 10 people would be like, yes, absolutely. And every single one of those people called me back and said, "Hey, we got reached out to our insurance company. You were the first guy here. Like, thank you so much." Nobody else even offered to do something like that. They thought, well, why would somebody do that? I've always gone the extra mile, and anybody that really knows me knows that I'll kind of just let it all out. Right. I'm a giver. I'm very humble when it comes to trying to help others and recognizing that, maybe my problems aren't honestly that bad. It could be worse. So I try and humble myself in that regard. But when it came to sales, man, you do what you got to do, as far within limitations, right? But you do what you got to do to get that sale. And, I was hungry. So I'm like, well, if I got to go and, spend 500 or 600 bucks on some tarps, but I can make that back in one roof, well, that makes sense, right? So, and it did. It always worked.
See, it's a great strategy because, what they call loss leader, sales strategy, there's a cost. There's a cost of time, effort,
Yeah.
and putting up tarps. I mean, there's cost in that. But by
Yeah.
doing that, it's going to be, to your point, it's an easy way to get in the door, be the first one for
Yeah.
them to call. Then you have the actual roof.
Yeah. For sure. It worked
It's
out great for
amazing.
me. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's a really important example because so many of us are looking for ways how we can carry our business. And I'm sure, if this was your passion in those areas over time, like you could build on that. But for you want to come back to Phoenix
Yeah.
because you have experience. I know you worked as a superintendent for other builders. You
Yes.
have your own GC license now. You've worked in the trades. Having worked in the trades, how does that change the way that you manage your trade partners when you are acting as the GC?
I think it surprises most of my trades how much I know about the building process, not only because I did it firsthand, but I also then, as you mentioned, I was a superintendent for a lot of good builders. And I try to not only like open up my eyes and open up my mind to, hey, like, what are they saying here? But I try and visualize it. And I would say that's probably one of my strengths is even being on the road. If somebody gives me a call and says, hey, I got a problem with this plumbing valve right here, and there's a stud, and there's this, I can already envision what's going on there because I've been there and I've taken like a mental, picture, and I can then explain to them instead of saying, well, hold on, let me get my framer, and hold on, let me get my plumber, and hold on, let me give it this. I can say, hey, this is what we're going to do. We're going to move this. Just go ahead and cut that stud out. It's not bearing. I'll get the framer back there. We'll box it out this way. We'll get some backing in there for that valve. We'll make sure that it's, out its inch and a quarter, whatever we need for a tile mud set. Things of that nature. Like just trying to, I guess, utilize my own experience and not treating my trades as dumb, because if it wasn't for me or if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be where I'm at right now. I mean, all these guys, they know who they are. The guys that have helped support me and push me to not only start my own business, but have kept me going. I mean, it's a team effort. And so there's a lot of general contractors that have a license as a general contractor, but there's also a lot of general contractors that also have trade experience, that have their own skin in the game, that have been in it, for years before they ever went out on their own. And I think that, I fall kind of into that category because I had that experience. I had the opportunity to get down, get after it. My dad taught me so much growing up about building every one of the houses he moved us into every other 2 years. It was like, hey, we're building our house. They were building, hey, come over here, do this. And, I got a lot of experience doing that. And it's fun to me. So ever I get a chance to go ahead and, get back into the field, or somebody's got questions and, we have a problem to find a solution for, I'm all game.
It's interesting. I find a lot of value in that because I feel like your construction knowledge is really high. You mentioned Spanish, you're a good Spanish speaker. There's a lot of traits that really help in that communication as well as just the understanding between, trades and GCs. Something in addition to that I've seen for you and that I know from my experience, because I worked in the trades too. That was how I grew up as an
Yeah,
electrician and work in the trades. And,
exactly.
I think at times as a GC, we kind of fall into these, you know, buckets or the mentality that, we have our schedules and we're
Yeah,
driving the trades to hit these schedules and why is it taking so long? But anyone that's had bags on, things always take longer than you'd imagine,
of
like they always
course.
do.
Yeah,
And more importantly, I know how it was certain days, right? It's hot outside. I maybe didn't get a lot of sleep the night before. Maybe you're dealing with
yeah,
some personal stress at home and you just aren't motivated. You show up to job saying, like, I just don't have it today. It's almost like anyone that goes to the gym regularly, there's certain days where you go to the gym and you're just like, I don't have it today. Like,
yeah,
I'm going to
totally.
force myself through the workout, but I'm drained.
Every time I show up and there's a workout with you and Rex involved, I just want to just grab my water bottle, turn around, and just go right back down the stairs because I'm not going to be able to. I can't compete with that. It's
Yeah.
impossible.
So no.
But no, dude, like for serious, because here's the thing: is like I know that there's that human aspect, like, and I have a few of my buddies, that work for me. There's, my superintendent Eric Hunt. I've known him for I think 11 years now. We kind of go way back. We've got a long crazy history, and in good ways, right? But there's been ways that we've grown together. And what I've seen with him is the more I've decided to, instead of put on the role of, hey, I'm your boss right now, it's, hey, how can I help you and how can I support you? What do you need from me? What are some of the details that I haven't shared with you? Like, and I take out the work factor and insert that human touch. it not only, you could ask him, but I think that makes him feel heard and seen, but it also makes him feel like I actually care and that he's not just a robot of mine or like an employee. He's somebody who I truly value. He's a team member that we need in order to help us succeed. And, that's always been something that I've tried to push. It's like, there's going to be days where we don't have it. There's going to be days that I don't have it. Like, I don't even want to get out of bed, especially after coming back from Costa Rica. The next day, I was like, dude, I just want to sleep. And my body's like, get up, go work out, move your body, because, all right, yeah, I got to keep these things going, these good habits. And so, as a GC, as a business owner, I know that my people, my trades, my employees, they look up to me and they're watching me. And so, like my kids, they're watching everything I'm doing. It blows my mind that I have a 5 and 6, or he's almost 6 years old now. My youngest son, Ledger, he'll go and he'll open up doors for people. And I've never once asked him to do that. And so it's a great testament to me that everybody's watching. We got to kind of stay on our A game, but I also, again, just try and do my best. I mean, I fail plenty of times. I'm sure if you talk to my employees, they'd be like, dude, this guy's crazy. He's always running and gunning and he needs to slow down. And they're most likely right. I should probably slow down. But in my mind, it's like, we got to just keep going. So
There ain't no time to slow down.
come on now.
As you look back at your career, Matt, are there mistakes? Maybe you don't want to get into certain specifics, but like maybe mistakes or things that learned from you that have helped catapult you to where you are today.
I would say that if I were to look back on my career, there's so many mistakes that I've made, not only as a superintendent, but as a project manager. There was one specifically that I remember that cost us, probably 10 grand because I made, just a quick offhand decision to like, yeah, no, let's just go ahead and frame those that way. And yes, go ahead and order those doors without thinking of, are those doors the style that the client wanted? Is this what we're going for? Right. And then I get an entire order of doors that shows up and I immediately see it at that point. I'm like, wait, these are not full slab doors. This is a one panel shaker. Like, what is this? And I go back to what I signed off and I ordered and it's that. Oh gosh.
I hate that feeling. We've all been.
Dude. Oh, it's the worst because I just felt sick to my stomach. But you know what? The guys installed the jams and I called my boss and I was like, Eric, you're gonna hate me, dude, but I screwed up. Like, we missed something. He's like, what is it? It's the doors. All right, did you sign off on it? I signed off on it. It's my fault. All right, what are we gonna do? Well, we gotta order new doors and we got the jams in, but we just gotta order the slabs now. All right, go ahead and do it. Now, it came off my bonus, but I think that was what needed to happen. And I told him, I was like, dude, if this has got to come out of my bonus, I'd take it off my bonus. And he did, right? Like,
Wow.
I owned up to it. I don't want things handed over to me. Now, did I have to tell him that? No. Could I have used that money? Yeah. But you know what? I know that Eric knew that I was part of that team. I know that he knew that I was all in the same way that he's all in, and this is a big build. It's right on the bluff in Solana Beach, like high profile client. Like, there was no failing here. And this was, 2,000 square feet interior remodel. That was a $1.2 million interior remodel, like very expensive, very high end, very precise. Everything had to be right. And so if I make a mistake, I gotta make up for it. Now, something else I will say is that I would probably categorize the most important thing in having the ability to own a business is knowing that everything's taken care of at home and in like my personal life, right? And like we have a lot of factors that kind of go into how we can manage not only ourselves on a daily basis, but our employees and our business. And I would say that when things are really tough at home, it gets tougher in business. And, when I'm not at my best, whether it be with my wife or my kids or just anything, maybe, it was a verbal confrontation or something that happened with me and one of the kids before I left that day, like it jacks with me, and it kind of messes me up inside and kind of eats away at me until I can make that right at the end of the day when I see my kids, pick them up from school or whatever. Like those little things, I think so many of us don't put enough attention to. And sometimes, even though the business is doing great, we see our personal life going this way. And so it's a daily challenge to try and keep those two, going at the same pace, going in an upward or a forward motion for that matter, just to make sure that we're not out here making all this money, but then throwing away our relationships, whether it be in work, outside of work, so on and so forth.
How do you do that? How do you not bring your problems home in front of your kids?
Oh, good. I do. No, but I do it every day. But my wife and I, we have great conversation. We have great communication, and she'll tell me like what happened today. Like she can feel it. She can feel my energy. You know, she can feel that something's off, and so I'll talk to her about it. And I would say communicating, with your spouse is probably the most important thing in order to try and leave that stuff, because it's really hard for me to just leave it at the door or leave it in my truck or leave it in the office. Like it's really tough. I care a lot. I'm very passionate about what I do and why I do it, and I want my clients and my trade partners and my employees to see the same drive, and that it's not just words, but that I truly do care. So I bring it on with me. I think about it. I dream about it. I'll wake up and think about a detail in a framing detail in a house that we're doing right now. I'll be like, oh, that's how we're going to do it. I'll write it down and I'll go to back to bed. Like it's kind of crazy, but it just happens. It just happens.
I know you've been you've always been active. I've known you for a long time, Matt. Like that's a big
Yeah.
part of you. Very athletic. I will come back to this, but I saw in Costa Rica you have a cannon of an arm. So, well, we'll come back to that. It shocked me, but how has exercise and focusing on that health? How has that played a role in running your business, being a business owner? You as a father.
I would say it's huge. There's a lot of things that we stress about and we worry about, and having a space where I can go ahead and get that emotion out and just push some iron, or, you know, Mark Williams will hate this, but like I hated every little bit of that running that we did in Costa Rica. However, I will tell you, like, man, my lungs got cleared out. Like I feel better, like it, as much as I hate it, I know it made my body feel better. So just moving your body, 45 minutes to an hour every morning. And I say morning because if I don't start my mornings off in the gym, my day does not go the same. No matter what I say, like I can work out in the afternoon, I could do 2 a days, late morning and early afternoon. It wouldn't matter. If I don't start it early in the morning, it kind of is just a trickle down effect through the rest of my day, my mood, my irritability, my ability to be able to like have good conversation with people. It just kind of gets burnt out because I feel burnt out. So um, the last 6 months, I've actually hit the weights, and I think it's been a big testament to me to just push myself again to do hard things. I hate getting up every day and having to go to the gym, but I know it's good for my mental, so I got to
Yeah.
do it. And I have a team of guys around me that push me and will send me pictures and tell me to quit wussing out and lift harder and lift better. And so having all that like that, seriously, that's what I need to just keep myself motivated. So now I'm at the point where if I don't go, I automatically know what's wrong, and if I'm in a position to drop what I'm doing and go and hit some weights, then I do it.
It's funny
So
you say that. It's funny how it becomes a lifestyle. Like in the beginning,
oh yeah.
it's hard to go. Then it becomes a habit, and it gets to the point where you don't go and you just feel different.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's my mood. I don't know why, but it's just my mood. If I don't feel the swole pump from the day, I'm like, man, I didn't
That's
do
what
anything today. I gotta be feeling swole, dude.
How did how did that play a role in you decided to do boot camp?
Um, Anything I hear with boot camp, I automatically assume that it's going to be something that's hard.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that I had just kind of started, and none of you guys believe me, but that's fine. You guys will never believe me anyways. But I had just actually started like trying to go to the gym instead of just doing push-ups every day, and
We
it
just
was
tease
just
you
one of
because you're
those
so
like
strong so fast. So
whatever. I just no, it was good because you guys are all in here lifting heavy weights. So I'm like, all right, I gotta start putting up plates, like I don't have any excuse. I'm not just gonna sit back and, wuss out on everything. I'm gonna go. And so when the invitation for the boot camp came around, it was like, oh, it's in Costa Rica. That sounds fun. But if it's gonna be a boot camp, I know it's not just gonna be all fun and games, right? Like we're gonna get tested. However, you, Rex, Ryan, I knew you guys were going. I'm like, all right, I'm there. Like it's going to get competitive. I'm very competitive by nature. I don't like losing ever at all. Um, I will if I have to, obviously, but I push myself to my limits. So that there was a few days. I mean, heck, pushed myself all the way to throwing up that one day on the
you
beach.
did.
That was terrible. I don't want to relive that moment.
Shows how hard you push, though.
Yeah, man. 25 burpees after all my crap that we did that day. It was
Yeah.
terrible.
What did you get out of boot camp that you weren't expecting?
Um, how much I needed to disconnect from my phone, from, just like life in general, just to get clarity. I was really surprised, like how much of an effect that had on me. I don't like to consider myself as somebody that's always on his phone, but once we had that boot camp and like my phone was around me, there were so many times, and even you, right? Like we're like grabbing our phones to like
Yeah.
try and check things, and it's not there. And that habit, man, I probably did that 100 times. I'm like, man, this has just become like part of me, and that's not cool. Like I don't like being governed by some device that, sure, everybody calls me and texts me, emails, whatever, but like if I can't have a life outside of being, essentially bossed around by my phone, then what is it, right? So it gave me a good perspective. I came home making a little bit of changes, tell my wife, my kids, like, hey, I'm sorry. I know that there's times where I come home and I'm still hammering through emails, but like there's a hard cutoff at this point, and we'll just push it to the next day and keep that work life balance, which has been very difficult for me to try and harness.
Yeah, it's funny. I've come to really appreciate events like these. It's the first time I've ever been to like a boot camp,
Yeah,
um, of this format. But what I do find is when you're around a lot of professionals that really are trying to better their lives, their personal lives, their family life, their kids' life, their business.
yeah,
There's just you're always going to come away from those events with one nugget, two nuggets, maybe 20 of different things that just what I really enjoyed about it. Just to give little background for those listening, there's Mark Williams. He came to our first summit, and he's been to a few after. I know he knows you very well, Matt, and
yeah,
he values as well the same thing, that you can get together with maybe you're not phone around you 24/7 to have these deep conversations. And every night he would do these Jeffersonian dinners where, when you're in a group of 20 people at a big dinner table, you typically just have a conversation with the person that's next to you. Maybe two or three of you are in that conversation. And so his thing was, we're going to ask a question to the group and everyone's going to answer it, and you get to listen to everybody. And I think it was I know things, people got emotional some of the nights because, you're just around these vulnerable people that are sharing vulnerable information and stories and those personal connections. And I think everyone leaves not only with the physical, but also maybe a mental and some other goals that they want to change in their life,
yeah. That was really good. I felt like that brought the whole group together. It helped us all a little bit understand each other a little bit more. There were some very raw, open emotions and feelings that were shared in some experiences. And like, it hit me. It hit me that like, you guys, we're all humans just trying to do the best that we can out here, and like there was one, Caleb, Caleb was my partner for one of the challenges, and he ran the entire beach with the sandbag, absolute
Oh,
beast,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. Okay, Caleb, dude, just a machine.
He's a
And
machine.
yeah, and he asked me, he's like, "Wait, so you're one of Brad's competitors?" And I looked at him, I was like, "Dude, I can't compete with Brad. Like, it's not about that. I'm in the same market, yes, but like, as far as competitors go, like, no, like, we build each other up. I'm trying to do some work with him. He's pushing jobs over our way, and like, there's going to be an opportunity that if I continue to surround myself with people like Brad, that will continue to push me. Well, it's only going to translate into my business growing, my personal life growing. You've always included me in the invites out to the summits. I learned so much from you during those summits, Brad. Like, it blows my mind how much and how well your operation runs. And I think it blows everybody's mind, right? And that's why there's so many people that try and surround themselves with you, is because they see what you're doing and it's good. And now I'm starting to do that. And now I have people in the background trying to, hey, dude, like, can you teach me how to do this? What should I do here? And I already got the tools, right? It's like, come to the summits, come to boot camps now. Like, if we're going to do boot camp every year, if we can come to a boot camp, push yourself, disconnect, meet new people that are trying to do the same thing. Like, I just feel like if we're going through life being stagnant, there's something wrong. We've got to try and level up every single day in something.
I'm with you. I think it's very important to always level up. Maybe that's a competitive nature we have. It's
Yeah.
funny because the cheat sheet is, I've had this podcast for 6 years. And when I started, I didn't realize that I'd be able to sit down with professionals such as yourself, Matt, and, look back at all these different guests I've been able to speak with. And when I talked to my producer, they kind of give a ratio of how often the guest speaks and you speak as like the moderator, right? And, fortunately, I think in most of my episodes, the guest is speaking 65, 70% of the time.
Yeah.
So I think about, that's of an hour, I have 70% of the time that like, they're almost just talking to me. And
Yeah.
so you just, over the years, you just download that information. It really helps like make an impact. There's so many changes I've made in my own company and personal life just from guests I've had on. I really appreciate that. It just, there's so many talented people with so many different life experiences. And it's like, it's so important to optimize experiences they've had. We talked about mistakes
Yeah.
earlier. I've had
Yeah.
so many, Matt. I prefer now. They've cost me a lot of money. I prefer to learn from other people. So,
Yeah, of course. I'm the same. Yeah. Yeah. No, I don't want to have to learn those costs and mistakes anymore because, yeah, it's painful. It's very painful. But I would second that also that, it's because we care. We care, man. Like being professional, I've learned means a lot of different things other than just, wearing a suit and tie or like looking
right.
good, show it to me. No, man, there's so much more that goes into that.
Uh,
And a lot of it is just honesty and integrity. Like if you're honest and your integrity is tight with people and it's high, and you truly value taking care of people, I don't see really anybody having a hard time because somebody asked me the other day, they're like, what has pushed Cruise to where it's at? And I was like, honestly, dude, my reputation. Like, it's incredible. Everything that we receive is referral based. I try and do some promoted posts here on Instagram here and there and trying to like get our reach a little bit bigger, right? But like that doesn't sell me jobs. Fortunately, my name and the name of the company and the work that we do is helping bring more jobs to the table, and like that's just so cool to me. It's so cool that now people see what we're doing and they're like, man, these guys are awesome. Like I want to do some projects with them, and that's just it's been cool. I'm going into year 3 come May, and yeah, we have some incredible projects coming.
it's amazing. I mean, it's such a quick growth. As you like at the, going to the remodel side, one of the challenges of remodels is even if you have the best set of plans, best engineering, best design, there's still unknowns. How do you
Yeah.
set the expectation? How do you deliver on that when you know that open up the walls may differ from the plan? Say you may have to make alterations that could affect the budget too.
So something that we do on our remodels is I'm always cost plus. And the reason I always do cost plus on remodels is because of that, because we don't exactly know. We can do our discovery. And over the years, I've learned some of the steps that I can take in the prelim stage to do a little bit more discovery, to find out more answers. For example, we had a project beginning of last year. We went to demo the structure. This was going to be demoing about 75% of the structure, leaving one half, and then adding on. This is a spec build. And we go ahead and we're demoing everything. We demo the tile off the slab, and the slab is just like heaved, and it's this big section right out in the living room. It's just cracked all the way around. And I'm like, dude, this thing's too thin. So I take my drill and I drill through it, and I get an inch and a half of concrete before I hit dirt. I'm like, oh no, dude, there's no way, right? And I go to the owner. I say, hey, we gotta have to pull this out. And it was kind of a shock, right? She's like, well, why are we having to do this now? Like, why was this something that wasn't foresought? And I said, you know what? It just we didn't think about it, right? I mean, we drilled over there, and that slab was 4 inches thick, so we just didn't think to drill this entire side. Well, it turns
Right.
out one area was poured later at 4 inches thick. The rest of it was an inch and a half. We had to tear all that out, tear the footers out. We had to build up on the footings 4 to 6 inches, and then pour in a new slab, and it cost a lot of extra money, right? So that was a big learning lesson for me of, well, I'm glad I do a cost plus, right? Because if I'd have done a fixed price, I would have ate that, and that would have really
Yeah.
not been fun. But also going forward, I can be a little bit more diligent, and I can start coring every single room everywhere just to make sure, especially on those older builds where you're just not sure where, when, and what was done on the remodel side. And then, another thing I try and do is I try and set that precedence with the homeowners in the beginning stages of the build and say, hey, because it's a remodel, we need to put aside a healthy contingency, mainly because we just don't know, right? We don't know until we get into it and see how bad things are. And so all of our clients are always on board for that. It's something that they control. We'll know exactly what costs are. We share invoices directly over, our estimates directly over to clients. They can see everything clean, clear as can be, everything itemized, and then we just put our percentage on top.
It's amazing. It can be tough because dual cost plus as remodeler is very advantageous to you, as you mentioned, because it's just so unknown. But one of the challenges is um, typically a percentage has to be different on cost plus because it's a
It
smaller
is.
job, smaller proportion,
Yep.
and so you have to be
Yeah.
able
So
to
that
sell that in a
changes.
way. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. That changes. So like we have a new build, where I took a 5% hit on my cost plus because not only the area of the build, but also just where it is and who it's for. Right. So it's like, okay, I'll kind of dictate that. But on the remodel side, man, it's really tough because we have to be dialed. Like I have to know if I have a cost plus that's, gonna say, let's say it's X, I don't want to make this. I want to make this. And if we have things that are over and above, I'll tell our owners, hey, you're paying the change mainly because this was unforeseen, obviously. But also we're taking a hit here for you to offset. If there was something that we could have done better, obviously, then I'll take a little hit here, hit there. But at the end of the day, it's meant to protect both sides. They know what our estimate is. We know if we do the job, nothing changes, we're going to make X. If there are changes, we're going to make Y, right?
How do you handle hiring because you're working with the hiring of the roofing where you're self-performing, and then you're
Yeah.
working, as a superintendent or management side for remodeling. So, how's that challenge been?
Oh, it's been so fun. Yeah. I've had to wear like 12 different hats.
Yeah.
So, it's been crazy. But hiring has been difficult. I mean, it's really tough to try and gauge what people have actual experience versus resume experience. I would say that there's been a flood of resumes that we've been sent that some people have a few minor experiences with some construction management software, but not actually any construction management, if that makes sense. So like for example, we're looking right now for a project coordinator, somebody that can come in and essentially do what Megan does for you, right? Oversee the project, making sure the project manager has what he needs, and the superintendent has what he needs from a back office standpoint. What she can help with admin, but also taking all the stuff that's in my head and off my plate, so I can focus on biz dev. That has been really difficult because there's a lot of people that have been project coordinators for, say, Apple, and it's like, okay, well, we're not dealing with data, we're not dealing with cell
Right.
phones, we're dealing with construction, or somebody who comes from the tech world, right? Same thing. Like you guys all know this computer stuff, this computer savvy side, but the field, like I need somebody that can also understand the industry that we work in and why it's important to call vendors 2 weeks ahead instead of the
Mm-hmm.
day you need something, right? Why it's important to check with vendors 2 weeks ahead of schedule. Hey, are we still on schedule? Every single one. All right. If everybody's still on schedule, our Gantt chart stays the same. If something changes, we got to extend. And so there's a lot of things that will start coming through that we don't necessarily understand, but problems that we got to solve. So
Do you have any employees that are pivoting between both the companies?
um not necessarily. I would say I'm the only one that's pivoting between both of the companies. I keep my superintendent and my project manager busy on the cruise development side. I'll typically handle the roofing side. I am looking for somebody to start taking the roofing side off my plate and
Mm-hmm.
kind of managing that, so that way I don't have to sit here bounce back and forth. It's just hard. It's really hard. It's hard to find really good help right now. It's hard to find people that truly want to work as opposed to people that just want to get a paycheck. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, there's a lot of sifting through the weeds, I would say.
It's tough. I think that's one of the hardest things about owning a business that no one told you right about.
Yeah.
When I asked you about hiring, and then
Yeah.
when you think about cost and overhead, and an employee, what's hard is as an employee, I remember being an employee and I'm like, I only made X, right? But it's
Yeah.
costing the company Y. And you don't realize that delta, how big that is. Like
It's
every
big.
employee, for easy math, they may take home 100 grand, but it could be costing me 170 as a company,
100%.
And so it's like, yeah. And so it's just one of those things. And it's hard to sell that value as an owner, just like we're trying to sell our value as a builder to our clients, we're trying to sell as an owner to our employees.
Yeah.
While at the same time putting them in a position where they can take care of their family and the stress of cost of living and, everything
Yeah.
on their plate. And it's a fine balance. And, there's only so much we can charge clients for the work that we do.
Of course. Yeah. And at the end of the day, sometimes there's been jobs where I'm just like, crap, I might have to eat a little bit on this job. Sometimes I might not profit as much, but by doing the right thing always. Like I have had, a great reputation for that, right? Just coming through at the end, especially if there's mistakes or there's things that were unforeseen or there's, changes. Like if there's changes, there's changes. It's not I've implemented, and anybody that's listening can do this as well. And mainly because of issues that have come from change orders getting paid. But if there's a change order that's executed, that work's not done until it's paid in full. So I won't get a deposit on a change order. I've tried that. I've tried that with friends. I've tried that with people who aren't friends. Yeah, it just doesn't work. If you want this change, here's the cost. There's my check. All right, perfect. We'll get this going. Until that check's paid, that change just sits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I've been burned too many times on the back end.
Yeah, as we all have.
Yeah. Yeah, it's terrible. It's like, dude, if you guys didn't want it, why'd you say you wanted it?
Yeah.
Yeah. We could go down a rabbit hole with that.
Oh my goodness. What keeps you up at night?
The need to provide for so many mouths. I would say that pressure it's a good pressure. It's also one that I chose to walk into being a business owner, but I would say it also goes back to just my care for my people and wanting to make sure that they don't go without. So some of the things that I think about before I'm falling asleep is my day planned and prep for the next day? Where's every one of my guys going to go? We self-perform a lot of stuff in-house. So I have a lot of in-house employees that, whether it be drywallers, framers, concrete, masonry, flooring, trimming doors, painting, landscaping, we do it all. And there's crews that I have accumulated over the last 15 years of my career that are super tight with me, that, we all have worked together for many years, and they understand that I hit the ground with 2 feet and my foot's always on the gas pedal. So we just got to cruise. That's our little tagline, right? We cruise development because we cruise. And the way we can do that is by working together. So if I know that maybe I feel like I'm failing, or I feel like I haven't worked as hard, that day or that week, and there's a lot of things coming up, that's the kind of stuff that'll kind of stress me out and make me stay up at night, just making sure that mentally I'm prepared and ready for what's to come. And if I'm not, what I got to do differently?
It's tough, that mental anguish, that stress. It's funny bringing that up, Matt, because when they say what keeps you up at night, I feel the same. I think a lot of us felt this kind of slow turn from last year into this year, right? Yeah. I mean, it's pretty common. Like end of last year, middle of last year was pretty slow for a lot of people, and so those tough decisions where you think, okay, the market's slow. You may have a couple of challenges on some of your projects, and it can eat at you. It's I feel like no matter how many conversations I've had on this and practice, if you will, owning my company for the time that I have, I still have a lot of work to do, with mental health and stress and how to control that.
It's so hard, dude, because when you care and you're pouring your heart and soul into it, but then you also care about your kids and your wife and your, life outside of work and life, it's just, there's so many variables that come up every day, and it's really hard to pour from an empty cup. So again, that's why recharging in the morning, hitting the gym, that's the best way to fill my cup. And I'm able to kind of spread that out. But when my cup's empty, and there's those days that, you just wake up and it's empty and you don't got anything to give, but you got to give anyways. Those are the days that really, make me struggle, make me question, why did I ever start this? I could just go to work for Brad and not have any of the stress, and it would be great.
Still just give it to me.
I just give it to you to let you handle it. Dude, I give in. I throw in the towel. I'm done.
Oh, you've done such a great job. Where do you see, cruise roofing, cruise development? How do you see both those businesses taking off in the next 5 years?
Cruise roofing, I'd like to see them, I'd like to see us be the premier roofer for, high-end builders in the Valley, because that's been my market. That's what I'm going after. Not only do I help contractors save money, but I help their owners save money. There's a lot of roofing companies that will go out and make a huge markup on new construction, and new construction is less work than R&R. So it's easy for me to come in and say, no, dude, I'm not going to charge an extra 20 grand just because I can. I don't need to do that. I can come in here and charge my margin. We come in here, earn your trust, earn your respect. We come and provide a good product. And then hopefully that, creates a long lasting relationship where we just get all the projects moving forward. So that's where I'd see cruise going, just, continuing to soar, on the build side. And then cruise development, I would say within 5 years, I want to have at least 3 or 4 of our own specs going by that year. I have a goal this year to hopefully get our first spec of my own this year. Just bought my house end of last year, but this year there's some big jobs that we have coming that I'm hoping, if we're smart financially, we can kind of profit what we need to, and utilize that profit to go and start one of our own investments and see where that goes from there. I'm very optimistic. I really like where things are going. I like the opportunities that were being presented, but I also want to stay realistic. And I think that, um, we surpassed 10 million last year, and it was our second year. So this year, we're just going to continue to try and build off of that and see where it takes us.
It's amazing. You've done such a great job, Matt. And, for those listening, I know Matt for a long time, knowing your family. You come from a great family, great stock. I think you make it on our team is a connection to your family. And so one of my key people from you guys. And so really appreciate making time because I know how busy you are.
Of course. Oh, of course. I wouldn't have missed this. Heck no.
What do you do for fun?
Oh, for fun. I really like to hunt. I like to get outdoors. I like sports, baseball, football, basketball, really anything to get the heart pumping, the adrenaline pumping. It's been a long time since I played football, so I'll go there. But baseball continues to be a big passion of mine. Basketball, my kids seem to like basketball a lot, so we're going to try and get some kids playing some basketball this year. But 6 kids, man, they keep me active. I love putting smiles on their faces. I love when, I get to come home and say, hey, you guys, let's go somewhere. Let's go to dinner. Like, what? We don't have to eat dinner. Oh, I'm like, oh, let's go to dinner. Let's have some fun, right? Like, well, it's been, for Brad, like 2.5 years ago, I couldn't rub 2 pennies together.
Yeah.
I was literally living barely paycheck to paycheck. It was bad. And so, to just be where we're at now, like looking back, it's just a huge blessing, very grateful that I've pushed through and had the support behind me to continue to do that, but also that people have trusted, in me and in our company to, give us the opportunity. That's, for me, that's what means the most, because it can help us continue to live the life that we like and provide the life that our employees like. So, yeah. Outside of that, let's see what else I do for fun. I love watching movies, man. I love quoting movies, especially funny ones.
Favorite movie?
Hot Rod all day long. Hot Rod all day long. Between Hot Rod and Talladega Nights, I can live my life. Just those two.
That's amazing.
There's enough one-line quotes in there, and then anybody that knows me for a long time, I live my life on movie quotes and funny ones too, because you gotta make people laugh, man.
Yeah,
life's so much better that way.
Is it how Robert's like what? Like he pronounces the H and like where?
Yeah. What are you talking?
Yeah.
Where do you get off?
Yeah.
Why I'm saying what way?
Yeah, I haven't seen that forever. That's funny. Hot Rod, man.
Dude, we just watched it yesterday with my daughters. It's the first time they've seen, and I just felt so just proud of myself as a parent. Like, yes, my kids want to watch Hot Rod. Yes. Yes. It's so awesome.
That's an amazing accomplishment. Well, Matt, you've been amazing. Appreciate making time and appreciate the friendship.
Of course, Brad. Thank you. Appreciate you.